So every week, our online range of motion individualized programming clients do the range of motion individualized programming common session. This is a session that all of our clients will do. Aside from this, all of their programming is completely individualized, but this is a great chance to compare scores, results, and talk strategy. And that's exactly what I would like to do now. This week's ROM-OP common session is a variable speed run session. It starts off with 15 seconds at maximum pace, that's 10 out of 10. Straight into 30 seconds at a 8.5 out of 10 pace. Straight into 3 minutes at 7 out of 10 pace, then a 3-minute active recovery, and finally a 3-minute passive recovery for a total of 3 rounds. So let's first explore the programming science. And this session trains multiple different energy pathways. It trains your phosphocreatine work, which is that very short, intense work. It trains the glycolytic energy system, and it trains your oxidative energy system as well. So the session begins by training the more intense, higher yield energy systems, and as you go, you start to train those lower intensity, lower energy yield systems. And as a result of this, we are training our anaerobic threshold, our lactic threshold, and our aerobic thresholds. Now, the shortest of these bouts of exercise of these energy systems is this 15-second max effort piece. Now, because this is primarily anaerobic, we are not producing a lot of the negative byproducts that may be associated with more sustained efforts. However, when we then go into that 30-second piece and into the 3-minute piece, our body does start to produce these hydrogen ions. And this is why we do that active recovery piece to help to buffer these out of the body. We start with the shorter duration piece so we can get all of the benefits of that more intense high yield energy system. And then as we go, we get subsequently longer. If we were doing this the other way around, you would start to get these hydrogen ions accumulating early and you would just lose the intensity for the higher effort work. Let's now move on to our health and body composition benefits. As a form of work capacity or cardiovascular training, this session is associated with a reduction in the rates of things like cardiovascular disease and some forms of respiratory disease. A session like this will result in a long-term chronic reduction in your resting heart rate and can also cause increased blood flow to the brain. In terms of effect on mood, cyclical sessions like this, where you're repeating those same movements over and over again, have been shown in the research to have the greatest effects on the release of those feel-good endorphins in the body. So as a mood booster, this session is very effective. And an increase in these endorphins is not only going to improve your mood and mental health, but can also help to reduce levels of pain in the body. As a result of this style of training, you will also experience favorable changes in your blood chemistry. We can see reductions in cholesterol, reductions in our blood lipid and our blood glucose levels, and a reduction of triglycerides in the blood. And contrary to popular belief, this session is not necessarily the best way to help to manage your weight. If you're trying to lose weight, yes, it can be part of an overall exercise program, but this high intensity interval-based work, variable pace, more cardiovascular-based training should only form part of a long-term weight management strategy if you're combining it with a full program that also includes strength training. Let's now move on to some of the performance-based benefits of this session. And obviously, with this being a cardiorespiratory based session, that is what this session will improve. Not only the sustained aerobic effort, but those shorter high intensity anaerobic efforts too. So effectively, we are improving your body's ability to create long-term repetitive muscle contractions to be able to deliver fuel to a muscle and to remove the waste products from that muscle. And as we go, because we're training different intensities for different time domains, we're able to train across these different time domains and ensure that we're maximizing the effect that we can get out of this session. And we can actually raise the threshold at which each of these energy systems kicks in. The idea here being, of course, that we are trying to train the body to be able to perform at a higher intensity for an extended period of time, and to be able to perform at that higher intensity before we have to draw on a more aggressive energy system, which may have some more of these negative byproducts, causing our body to shut down and not be able to produce as much movement. As a result of this session, you'll also experience an improvement in the intramuscular substrate levels and a lot of those enzymes that exist in the muscle, which can increase our output. Now, of course, being a repetitive type movement, as with all repetitive type movements, we see some favorable changes in things like your mitochondrial density, and also changes in your muscle fibers where they become a little more endurance-based. This can help to delay fatigue and allow us to keep these muscle contractions happening for an extended period of time. As well as an increase in the density of the mitochondria in our muscles, we can have an increase in the capillary density, which is improving our ability again to take that fuel and those products to the muscles and remove the byproducts from those muscles. Not only in the skeletal muscles themselves, which we're using, but also in those muscles involved in breathing. From a psychological perspective in this session, again, because of these sustained contractions, you're able to get into that flow state, which can have a lot of positive impacts on mood, but also increase your physical performance. Let's move now on to strategy. And the strategy is pretty simple on this. Each of those 3 work intervals, you should be holding the maximum sustainable pace that you can. So for the 15-second interval, what is the maximum pace that you can hold on to for those 15 seconds? Chances are it's going to be close to that 10 out of 10 that we are chasing. Then into that 30-second piece of work, what is the highest pace that you can maintain there? Obviously the intensity is going to be down, but it will still be high. Again, we're looking about for that 8.5 out of 10. And finally, your sustained 3-minute piece before we get into our recovery. What is the maximum pace that you can hold on to? If you can't maintain that pace over the 3 minutes or the 15 seconds or the 30 seconds, you've gone too fast. If you can increase the pace towards the end, you've gone a little slow. And just a final point on strategy. It's good strategy here to get your recovery right. Because we're exercising at a high intensity and our body is producing these hydrogen ions as a byproduct, you need to be active in your recovery. So as soon as you finish that 3 minutes at 7 out of 10, you should continue either with a very slow jog or with a brisk walk. This will help to keep those muscles circulating blood around the body to ensure that we are buffering off those negative byproducts, those hydrogen ions. Let's talk about the intended feel or sensation that you should be getting from this session. The first 15 seconds should be very fast. It shouldn't be uncomfortable because we are exercising at a high rate, but for a very short period of time. However, when you get into that 30-second effort, things will start to get uncomfortable. This is as your body is starting to produce those hydrogen ions. Towards the last 5 to 8 seconds of that 30-second effort, you should be extremely uncomfortable as you're trying to hold pace. And then having to go straight into that 3 minutes at a 7 out of 10, which is still a decent amount of effort. Again, it will be uncomfortable. The challenge there is for you to sustain that discomfort, to be able to hold on to that uncomfortable pace for that extended 3 minutes. Then at the beginning of your 3-minute active recovery, again here, it should be pretty uncomfortable at the start, but as you go, as you start to buffer those hydrogen ions out of the blood, your recovery will start to come and you'll start feeling better about 60 seconds into your active recovery. Let's move on to scaling guidelines. Now, because this is a relatively simple movement, it's a run, you shouldn't have to scale this too much. However, if you're scaling for injury, you want to scale with a similar sort of movement. A lot of people will automatically scale something like rowing in instead of running, but it's a completely different movement pattern. Something like a bike erg, for example, may be a better option here. It's giving you not only the same energy systems to be trained as you would if you were rowing, but also similar muscle activation patterns. So as you're progressing back to being able to do full running after you start to recover and rehab your injury, you'll be able to progress back into full running sooner because you've conditioned your body to do so. There are 2 common mistakes that we often see in this session. The first is not hitting those target intensities. It's very difficult to go at 100% for those 15 seconds when you know that you have an extended period of work to be done after that. So what you really need to try and do here is switch off the fact that you have subsequent intervals to do and just focus on that one you're doing at that time. 15 seconds at 10 out of 10, then straight into that 30 seconds at an 8.5 out of 10, and then into those 3 minutes at a 7 out of 10. Just be present with this, focus on each at a time, and that will give you the best overall result. The second big fault that we often see here is people not taking that active recovery seriously. It is so important to keep moving, to keep going, to take those hydrogen ions out of the body, they're sent to your liver and buffered away so you can then perform again at a high intensity in the second and third sets. So have fun with this session. It is uncomfortable, but there is a huge amount of return from it. I hope the science, these explanations and our strategy talk has helped. Love to hear your results. You can post them wherever you're watching this video. If you'd like to learn more about range of motion individualized programming and how we can individualize a program for you, head to rangeofmotion.net.au/ROMIP.